Our growth model is fading, vulnerabilities are mounting, and there is no clear path.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
All of us want to finish this war, stop Russia and stop this war.
China and Russia expand influence in Africa amid deepening humanitarian crises.
Peace has been achieved after untiring efforts.
Europe's economic slowdown increasingly appears structural.
Welcome, everyone, to Unconventional Knowledge from Geopolitical Intelligence Services. I'm Andy Kureth, Managing Editor here at GIS. Today's episode is a special one. If you follow GIS for any length of time, you know that the person joining me today is the reason GIS exists at all. The architect behind the platform, someone who has spent decades in business, finance, and geopolitics, and who has consistently been ahead of the curve in forecasting global trends. I'm speaking, of course, about Prince Michael of Liechtenstein, founder and chairman of GIS. His commentaries are some of our most widely read pieces. He's frank, analytical, and unsentimental, yet always brings things back to a sense of perspective and possibility. And since this is our first episode of the year, we're going to use this conversation to look ahead. What will shape 2026? What are the dangers and opportunities? And what scenarios should decision makers be preparing themselves for? Prince Michael, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
No, thank you for having me here, and thank you for this introduction. It's very flattering, and I think it might raise too high expectations, but that's fine. Thank you.
Oh, well, I know that our listeners have high expectations, and I'm quite sure you'll meet them. But Prince Michael, there are plenty of big themes that you addressed in your writing throughout the past year. And today I want to touch on as many of them as we can. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First off, you've been remarkably consistent about Europe's biggest problem, leadership. You've written about mediocrity, fragmentation, complacency, and Europe sleepwalking into a more dangerous world. So, as we enter 2026, does Europe actually have leadership capable of navigating what's coming, or is it still drifting?
I'm afraid it is still, and the drifting, I think, is even a mild word for describing the situations. If we look at the larger countries, we see Germany has a coalition which is impossible to manage, and also Chancellor Merz, where one had big expectations, he drifted in the old complacency, having it more important to have a coalition working than really the themes going and keeping him as a chancellor. But some essential points cannot be addressed in this coalition, which he had promised in the campaign. We have a very similar situation in France. President Macron has a lot of bubbling with ideas, but nothing is following. The government in the UK is extremely weak, and this is also a pattern in a number of the smaller countries. So Europe has neither a leadership which is capable to resolve the economic problem, that means reducing the size of state, reducing the bureaucracy in a drastic way, and also dealing with the foreign policy problems, the migration problems, the relationship with Russia. So this is and the relationship with China, and also the relationship with the US. That the relationship is deteriorating. That's not only President Trump, it's also the European leadership. And we must not forget, we can't blame for that the European Union, because the European Union can only do what the member states want.
That's a very it's a somewhat pessimistic view of Europe. Do you see any signs for optimism? There are other parties that are gaining ground. Do you see any space for there to be some sort of renewal when it comes to European leadership?
I think it will eventually come because, in general, I'm an optimist. That Europe has gone through many crises and came out. The present system, I think, has become pretty sclerotic. The existing so-called democratic parties, they just want to grab to power. They do the wrong thing with new movements by trying to putting them into a corner or sort of in a radical corner here and there, which might in certain things, in certain instances be right, in certain instances be wrong. But they should actually look, why do these people on the left and on the right, why they have this success, and what is really the issue, and what is going wrong. And people have lost the trust in the government, and the figures, when you look after the trust institution in Europe, are very bad. People don't trust them anymore. What is the answer from above? Not trying to do being open, being clear, also admitting mistakes in the past. It's actually more control and more marginalizing of ideas. And that it destroys the trust. And, democracy in the real form needs also a certain trust between the institutions and the people. And if this is getting lost, I think democracy doesn't work. And if democracy, in order to save democracy, in order to defend democracy, start limiting freedom and start limiting the freedom of opinions, then I think democracy is on a very dangerous path.
That's very, difficult to hear as we start the year. But let's stay with Europe because there's more troubling signs. You've written quite frequently about Europe's defense shortcomings, underinvestment, supply shortages, ammunition gaps, and an over-reliance on the United States. So is Europe any closer to being able to defend itself today than it was, say, 2 or 3 years ago? And if not, what is it going to take?
Well, I think on one side, Europe has decided now, and certain countries, for instance, such as Poland, but also France, really do, and also Germany in certain instance, start to improve procurement, etc. Whether it's in the right way or not is another question, and there are certain criticisms there that they might sort of procure in the war of the past and not in the war of the future. I can't judge that. But I think the biggest problem is the question of personnel. And there are two ways. How to get enough active persons in the military, because we need people there, and this is very low. And what is the most concerning, that also in the population, the readiness, or the polls show that the readiness to defend one's own country, one's freedom, is pretty low. And I think this mindset is even more dangerous than, let's say, the lack of equipment. I think it's a lack of people and the mindset, which is the biggest problem, but also it needs the necessary equipment, also because it's also not very motivating if you want to defend your country, but you don't have the necessary equipment to do it. And there, I think that there are efforts being done, but I think it's not sufficient, and also it's not sufficient in the public spirit, because it's not sufficient to say we are now investing 3% or 5% of the GDP in defense. It's also necessary to create the right mindset. We want to defend our freedom. We want to defend our, let's put it in a way, our European way of life.
How do you go about changing that mindset? I mean, yeah, it seems to have been going this way for some years now. What has caused it, and how do you attack that, or how do you solve that problem of a mindset of a people who aren't eager to fight for their own country?
Well, I think we need to be much clearer that there is a lot of things where Europeans can be proud of, in its past, in the present, and to go. But at the moment, I think we have a mindset which is in between between an arrogance and an inferiority complex. That we say, oh, that wasn't good what we did here, and it wasn't good there, etc. Certainly not everything was perfect, but there's a lot also where Europeans can be proud about. Not only that we managed now to actually eliminate most of the inner European conflicts, that we got their way into the into integration, but it also means that we have to be also proud of our history. We can be criticizing certain things. We can look at a critical way on it, but it's a fact which was, and there's a lot to be proud of. And I think we have to go this way, that we say we have European culture with all the varieties, because the strength of Europe is the variety. But we have to create also a certain healthy, not nationalism, but patriotism, to say this is something which is worthwhile to defend. And I think that shouldn't be too difficult, but we would need to have politics who have the courage to say that, and we need also the media to follow that. And I think there we are. Not always when we are saying, and this is quite frequently, we are saying, oh, this was wrong in the past, this was wrong in the past, that's possible. But we also have to look at the positive ways of Europe, and we should be proud of that, and we should show that.
Agreed. I want to stay on this defense question just with one more follow-up, because I want to know if you think that European governments, as they do rebuild their capabilities to whatever level is happening now, I want to know if you think that whether their focus is in the right spot, because obviously right now a lot of the focus is on Russia, on the East, but I know that you believe that there are other areas where Europe should be focusing, and I'm wondering if you'd like to point those out and how you think Europe should go about focusing on those different areas.
Yeah. You know, there are a number of things. At the moment, we are really looking, we have the Ukraine war, we are looking towards the East, towards Russia. But we have other ways. We have a very important area for Europe is Africa. Africa is a very rich continent, a very important continent, the only continent where really there is still a population growth, and they have the most valuable resource which exists. They have young people. And I think we need to do a lot on Africa, on the business, to develop that, not necessarily with development aid, but with business. But also we need to, if there is a danger to our security, be able to intervene and to stop that. And this is extremely important, that Europe, in a way of as well business, politics, and defense see that Africa does not become a base for attacks on Europe. It should be actually a base where business can be done, where we can help Africans to develop and also have advantages for Europe. The other thing is we have to ensure our supply lines. Look at, for instance, for Europe, extremely important is the way through the Red Sea and Suez Canal for its development. So the Houthis, which are endangering the transport there, is a direct threat for Europe. And Europe is not able to do something about it. It needs to be done by the Americans. And I think Europe should also have the capabilities to defend their transport routes in the sea with the necessary forces, which would mean Air Force, Navy, etc., in order to ensure the supply lines. Yeah, I think we have to prepare for also that war in future will be a war in the space, and there might be also war in the Arctic. And we have also to see to that areas. And I think for the war in the space, Europe should really look to be in very close collaboration with the United States.
Thank you. Very, very interesting and clear insight there. I think we're dealing with a little bit of a delay here, so we'll try and power through that. But I do want to switch gears to the global economy. You've very frequently written about the dangers of debt, oversized bureaucratic states, and productivity stagnation in Europe. But at the same time, you've noted enormous opportunities in innovation, entrepreneurship, global realignment. So what does the global economy look like in 2026? Are we heading into turbulence, or do you see reasons for cautious optimism?
You know, this is a very, it's a very tricky question. I think, and you are right to address that. We have with new technologies, and I don't just talk about artificial intelligence and digitalization, where everybody talks about, but we do a lot of, we have a lot of innovation on the energy sector. We have a lot of innovation in the medical side. So there's a lot of innovation going on, which gives hope. But also disruptive innovation also means at the same time crisis. You know, for instance, the development of electricity in the 1890s created quite a large crisis all of a sudden because there was a bubble, etc. The bubble burst and there was a crisis. Now we have this very positive way of really a lot of innovation, but we have another problem that means it's the big debt problem, and it means the oversized state, which actually blocks in innovation, and which also the oversized state is a problem because a lot of people, a lot of talent is actually used not in a productive way, but more in a controlling way, and which also limits creativity. So this is a huge problem we are having, and where we don't find the right balance because I think we are too much geared for not having problems, not having failures, so that we do too much to prevent everything which could happen badly through regulations, through control, and this takes away the creativity for new developments. And you know, there is this Parkinson's law that institutions always grow and grow more. And we have that in our in our administrations, not only in Europe. It's in Europe. It's pretty strong, but it's also in also other parts of the world. And this way of limiting, actually, on one side through regulations, then doing more and more control, really lowers productivity, and I think will bring the whole world in problems. And that means also that the administration becomes too expensive. So the states have too high overheads, and this is also the source of the big deficits.
Thank you for that, Prince Michael. Another global subject that you have tackled is the erosion of liberal democracy through apathy, bureaucracy, and what you've called citizens' compliance. Do you think liberal democracy is actually in danger in Europe, or are we simply going through a cyclical period of disillusionment?
I don't. It's difficult to say. I think in this way, as it is now promoted, it is in danger. And I think this so-called liberal democracy, as we have now, has to become really more liberal, but in the classic liberal way, as the Europeans did, not the liberal which is a bit socialist in the American sense. So the states will have to give a lot of freedom and room of maneuver back to the citizens, that they are more free to act, and also back to the businesses. So we need less regulations, we need less state if we want to save the liberal democracy.
Okay. I think most of our listeners can agree with that. Another big issue that is going to be certainly dominating the headlines in 2026 is technology, and especially AI. You have been skeptical of Europe's instinct to overregulate, especially early stage technologies, but you've also been optimistic that innovation, if allowed to flourish, can be a source of renewal. So do you see AI as a stabilizing force, a destabilizing force, or something in between? And what does it mean for Europe's competitiveness this year?
Yeah. I think AI is a disruptive force. So it is certainly not a stabilizing force. And I don't think that we should, that the aim should be stability. Because if you call stability the aim, you risk to get into stagnation. And this is the total contradiction to stability. So I think, and I wouldn't really reduce it to AI. We should also, as we have with AI, we should also help to make the best use of other ways of digitalization, of using of blockchain, not only in finances, of biotechnology, etc. I think we have to be a lot more forward-looking and not starting with regulating. Certain things will go wrong. If you have new technology, certain things will go wrong. But really, the regulation part should only start then when you know what you want and what you need to regulate. And I think it's a bit early to do too much regulations in that area. And for Europe itself, the problem is that Europe thinks if we regulate it, we can force our regulations on the whole world because the market is so interesting. So if we do a regulation and we think it's good, and I assume that it is done in best faith being done, But they say, well, the other countries will then also adapt to it because they want to go to the European market. And this doesn't play anymore. That was probably an argument 40 years ago, but it doesn't play anymore. And therefore, we ourselves, we limit our innovation, but we don't change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very consistent with what you've written over the years. Another issue that is certainly going to dominate the headlines this year, and now we'll switch gears again pretty drastically, is Ukraine. Your writing this year has covered everything from Kyiv's need for consistent Western support to the dangers of a premature ceasefire to the broader geopolitical consequences of a frozen conflict. So, from your vantage point, what does the Ukraine conflict look like in 2026? Do you see stalemate, ceasefire, something in between?
Well, I must say, I'm a bit confused about it, but this is not helpful saying that. But if we look now, we have more or less a frozen front line. There is a little bit more, a bit less, but people are dying every day. So yes, actually, it would be good to end this war. It is always good to end the war, but it's a question on what terms. And there, I think, or I hope that there will be a ceasefire will be coming. But now, if we see it at the moment, there was this meeting in Berlin and there will be a meeting in Brussels. But it's always either the Europeans alone or the Europeans and the Americans. But it would need also very tough and hard direct negotiations with the Russians, because if only there are these meetings in Europe, it doesn't help. Now, Ukraine needs our support. That's very clear. We have to see wherever the ceasefire line is going, that the rest of Ukraine will be defended, so that basically European, French, German, whatever troops should be also standing in Ukraine. And we will need politics which make it very clear that in case that Russia goes, let's say, across a ceasefire line or starts another problem, let's say in the Baltics, the whole of Europe will react. And not only in a defensive way, but then that also, let's say, the Tauruses will be sent into Russia, etc. So that there will be a real strong retaliation. And we need to get, and this is now the most important thing for the Europeans, they need to get this credibility that they will do that. And this is what would be needed to be said very clearly when there are these meetings, like there was last week. There was a meeting between the British Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, the French President in London, and they talked about unity, etc. That's all very nice and good, but I think it would need very clear words that there would be, if there's an attack, a real retaliation. And if that is there, I think one can talk really about a ceasefire with Russia. But at the moment, I think we are not yet there, and I'm afraid that a solution is not as close as we might hope.
Depressing, but likely accurate analysis. Let's stick with global conflicts for a minute. Now, the Israel-Hamas conflict seems to have ended somehow. They seem to be implementing this ceasefire brokered by President Trump. But there is still some instability there simmering. And the question is do you see the risk of broader regional escalation increasing this year? There's still wild cards like Iran and what's going on in Syria. Do you see that stabilizing or more instability on the way?
Well, I think instability is a nice word to use for what's happening there. I think there's a lot more than just instability if we look at that. I think the Middle East is a hot spot, and there are different different conflicts which are done on different ways. There's Israel Palestinians. There is Iran, Saudi Arabia. This is not all. It has not all to do with that. There are other things. There's the Kurdish question. There's a lot of different ways. But I think they can find certain ways out, and I think what the US and the Europeans do, try to help them finding accords between them, as, for instance, the Abraham Accord, which was brokered by the US, but not mingle too much into the direct conflict, because they know it there. For instance, I think it is a clear mistake, for instance, of European countries all of a sudden recognizing an independent state of Palestine, which doesn't exist and is and actually puts some oil on the fire, and also supporting very strong these let's say anti-Semitic movements, actually, which are going around, these huge demonstrations which are everywhere, or then that it actually also fires certain things, like now the recent attack on the beach in Australia. So it's basically let's say a local conflict which takes now a little bit global involvement, and I think it needs to be kept locally and then really looked at. And I think the role of Europe and the United States is doing it, Europe less, is to be to offer a platform that they can solve their problems between themselves. And I think the Abraham Accords were a good beginning, and there are other possibilities as well. But there are also countries like Iran, who are probably the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, and who are trying to create problems all over the region in order to get their power. And they are also the Europeans should draw a very clear line on what is tolerated or not.
Thank you. The last conflict that I want to touch on is in Sudan, which is a conflict that you've mentioned several times, you've highlighted several times, despite the fact that it gets much, much less attention in the international media. And as you've said, it's one of the great underreported humanitarian and geopolitical disasters of the moment. So is Sudan a preview of the kinds of conflicts we'll be seeing more of, prolonged, fragmented, devastating, and ignored? And how much does the world underestimate the consequences?
Well, I think it's very important. Well, it's very important for the people in Sudan, because it's a terrible situation. But we have similar situations also in Eastern Congo and in other parts of Africa. But what is extremely important is, if I'm now not looking purely on the humanitarian side, which is horrific, and there should be it should get more attention and more support, and not by supporting the one side or the other side, but trying really also international community to find solutions between them. But it's also very important for the future of Africa, because the future of Africa is extremely important for the future of the whole world. And the world still, at least the Western world, still underestimates the importance of Africa. I think the Russians have realized it, Turkey has realized it, China has realized it. For the US, it's pretty far away, but for Europe, it's a very close neighbor. And I think everything which happens there needs a very close attention of Europe, and it's very important for Europe that there is a way that Africa can develop and become prosperous. And this cannot be achieved only with nice words. It would need also certain involvement, certain direct help, but also a lot of business in Africa. Now, business can difficulty come in if there's war, but really the European government should really look at a way how can that be done that these fights are stopped. And I think some of the misconceptions is that they say the states have to continue to exist in their borders as they are, because sometimes it should be allowed for parts to split off, etc., because this could help a lot to create peace. Now, in the moment, as it's now in Sudan, it's very difficult to achieve it, but I think Europeans should really try to put in a platform where the different warring factions could meet and could help to find a solution there.
You mentioned the different approaches that the US and China have to Africa, and the US and China have different approaches on many things. And the tension between these two big powers is of course going to be another huge issue for 2026. And you've also written a lot about this, and I'm just wondering where you see US-China relations going this year.
Well, I think there will be a bit a line of better and less good ones, of more trade and less trade, etc. I think none of the two wants it to escalate. And you can see there are regular also telephone calls between President Trump and President Xi, and they talks, and then sometimes there's more trade, sometimes less trade. I don't think that this year there will be a lot of change really in the relationship. China will continue with the claim to Taiwan. It will continue to make troubles in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea, but without letting it really escalate. I think there shouldn't be too many changes on that in 2026.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. So that leaves us with our last question. Since it's an outlook for 2026, I wanted to end on this one. And you've been very consistent over the years that even in difficult times, we shouldn't lose sight of the opportunities. So what gives you optimism as we enter 2026? Where do you see potential economically, politically, societally? And what opportunities deserve more attention?
Well, I think there are. Well, I think I see it mostly in technology, where we have touched on that, but it's not only the AI, it's also the space, it's the telecommunications, it's biotechnology. There's really a lot happening. There is also on trade routes, there are the new trade routes establishing. We are saying the world is in fragmentation, there's less globalization. We still have globalization in business. We also have a certain political fragmentation, which makes it more difficult, but it is still there. So I believe actually in one thing, it is that private business will prevail and will also do more. And what we can see also, that we have that the way of doing things is a bit changing. I think it changes also from the old diplomatic, long-term sort of structured negotiations, pushing decisions out, to getting more direct decisions, and also there business getting stronger involved. For instance, it was very interesting the way of the tariffs between Switzerland and the United States. Switzerland had this very big trade surplus for good reasons, and got this very high tariffs by the US. And then the official Switzerland tried to find ways to solve it in the old way, very sort of structures, etc. It didn't work. But then there were 5 entrepreneurs going to Washington with the blessing of the Swiss government, and this actually more or less solved the problem in a direct way. So I hope also that business will get more involved and trying to get much stronger also in politics. In the past, business tried to keep out of politics. And I think we need now that big business is getting a lot more involved in politics. And I think this is something we see that happens.
Yeah, a very interesting development, and a very realistic way of looking at it. And I appreciate that view. Well, Prince Michael, we've come to the end. I want to thank you for this very wide-ranging conversation and all of your very thoughtful answers. It's a perfect way to start our year with grounded realism from your decades of experience. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. And I think we should go with a certain optimism into the next year, always cautious, but optimistic. And I'm pretty certain that there will be improvements happening in the future.
Absolutely. Well, a perfect note to end on. Well, to all of our listeners, if you'd like to explore more of Prince Michael's analysis, along with reports from all of our experts, just go ahead and visit gisreportsonline.com. And this has been Unconventional Knowledge. I'm Andy Kureth. Thank you for joining us. And here's to a clearer, wiser, more resilient 2026. Take care, everybody.